Good afternoon and a very warm welcome to everybody who's connected to this webinar. We are proud to bring this webinar to you this afternoon by Cargo Now and the partners in this project by Global E-Trade Services. My name is Joe Lombardo and I'll be the host for this afternoon's discussion. And I'm very pleased to present the panel to you this afternoon. We have Mr. Keong, the Vice President of the Global E-Trade Services Asia Pacific Limited. We have Ms. Wong So-san, who's the Regional Sales Director of the Global E-Trade Services Asia Pacific. We have Fabian Tan, who's the Regional Group Director, Northeast Asia and Oceania Enterprise Singapore, who's joined us from Korea at the moment. Welcome, Fabian. Also joining us, we have Satoru-san, who's the Managing Director of TradeWaltz Incorporated. And we have Patrick Tan, who is the CEO and co-founder of Keepital. And my co-host this afternoon, I'm pleased to introduce, is Wayne Yoshida, who is the Director of Supply Chain Logistics and Transportation at Focus Core. Now, welcome to everybody. The discussion we are going to entertain you with this afternoon is called Building Supply Chain Resilience for Turbulent Times. And we're going to share with you what it means to have a cross-border, digital cross-border platform to enhance our e-commerce activities. The benefits that will be manifested by the discussion this afternoon show how important it is to embark in this direction. We also encourage everybody, please, to raise the questions either by writing them in the Q&A or in the chat. You can write them in English or in Japanese, if you like. We have interpreters here to help us understand the question, but please bring your question forward. We will have a pause partway through the discussion for a Q&A session, and then another one at the end of the session, so giving everybody a chance to ask the pertinent questions. Before we start the discussion, I'd like to invite my co-host, Wayne Yoshida, to say a few words of welcome in Japanese. Wayne?
皆さんこんばんは。日本語で質問がある場合は、チャットエリアに入力してください。後で全て答えます。
Right, Wayne, thank you so much for that introduction. So let me start off with our discussion. So a question to Fabian and Keong to start off with. How well do you think businesses really understand the importance of digitalization and the impact of applying it in these urgent times? Keong, if I could have your view, and then I will invite Fabian to follow that.
I think it's really, really important now for us to really go for digitalization, especially at this pandemic time frame. We are not allowed. I mean, many businesses has changed their focus or even the way they have managed it. They are really going into contactless or even, the use of all these driverless kind of delivery that is working on it. And it's very much that every one of us here now is looking at a better way or even more efficient ways to get business to be done. We really need to leverage on all the platform that's available in the market now. So I believe today we are going to introduce some of this with also some of our participants that, like Keepital, Mr. Patrick Tan. He has a great platform that can share with us. TradeWaltz, same thing. So this is something that we are really, really amazed and really wish to share all these good things with all the audience that we have in this seminar. And we hope to look for questions also. Maybe Fabian can add on.
Thanks very much, Keong, for starting off. And I really appreciate the invite to participate in this seminar, Fireside Chat. I think it's very timely that we discuss this topic about building supply chain resilience for turbulent times. I myself represent the Singapore government. Just now, Joe introduced that I'm currently in Korea. I'm actually here for a business trip, but I'm regularly based in Tokyo. That's my base. And I've been having a lot of conversations with our Singapore companies, which are interested in the Japanese markets, as well as Japanese partners, which are interested in Southeast Asian market. And almost, I would say 90% of my meetings, the word digital comes out. Yeah, it could be a manufacturing conversation. It could be a trade conversation. It could be a food conversation, food tech. And typically the word digital comes out because digital is a horizontal that is transforming many industries. I know in Japan, we use the phrase DX, which is short for digital transformation. And we've been working very closely in Enterprise Singapore with many of our partners here in Japan, which definitely includes Crimson Logic, Cargo Now, and we're very happy to also have Keepital and TradeWaltz participating in this webinar. And I think, actually, although I'm a speaker, I'm here to learn as well from our fellow panelists, which I think they will be able to offer many words of wisdom on the topic of digitalization and how it impacts our supply chains. Thank you.
Thank you, Fabian. Can I ask Satoru-san from the TradeWaltz to actually give us his view as well about how businesses are really understanding, undertaking, and applying the digital concepts?
Thank you, Joe-san. In my opinion, the business community understands the meaning of and the significance of digitalization and is working on it, but tends to underestimate its impact and does not fully understand the potential damage it can do to their own business, existing business. Bookstore model was already disrupted by Amazon, and the taxi model was done by Uber or Grab. So these kinds of the impact is very, very important to consider. Yeah.
Right, excellent. Thank you, Satoru-san. So let's look at what's been happening in the market. So after the tough disruption period, are businesses still hungry to move towards full digitalized solutions? So, Sam, could I ask you to give us a view, and then I'll ask Patrick to follow up on that as well. What is the appetite that businesses are now seeing after the disruption? Is it more, less, indifferent? Where do we stand?
Yeah, hi, thanks. At the beginning of last year, I would say that the companies, they felt the need to. They definitely feel like they want to, but because it was the first onset of the COVID disruption, they may not have the budget or the time to go into any major revamp. But 1 year on, 1.5 years on, they have definitely gone through some restructuring and re-strategizing. So today they are in a much better position to think about doing some form of more significant investment into their digitalization roadmap. And I would say that now is a very good time because the market has changed. There are a lot of options out there that is available for these companies to select. So I would say it's a very happy problem or happy situation right now. There are quite a lot of options out there to choose from.
Thank you, Susan. Patrick, what's your view?
Yeah, hi, good afternoon, and thanks for the invitation. Okay, I'm actually Patrick from Keepital. We specialize in B2B e-commerce because I think a lot of companies, right, they see others going on to e-commerce, okay, Shopee, Lazada, etc. But we move into B2B because we know that there's a gap here. Okay, we feel that Asian actually needs to go digital. We need to go onto B2B digital, whereby we actually have the help from Enterprise Singapore to incorporate CALISTA freight forwarding system to our system, so we can build an ecosystem for our customers in Asia to fulfill this ecosystem. So the thing is, we need to go digital, but the key thing is that we need to go step by step and even small steps. That's what I see from my customers in our region. So taking step by step, and for us as a provider, we actually guide them and hold their hand. So in this way, right, we're actually helping them day by day and step by step to move forward. Yeah.
Okay. Great. Thank you, Patrick. Thank you, everybody, for this very brief introduction questions. It's really good as a warming up session. Now, let's dive deep into the detail. So, CK and Satoru-san, I'd like to ask you, what is the approach businesses should take to really tackle digitization? What is the mandatory steps they need to take? So, Keong, if you could start us off on that, please.
Sure. I think the key buzzword that we really look at is for all the businesses is really to look at, number one, is to leverage on available platform already in the market. Good example like Amazon or Google or whoever that offers such kind of services within your country to help you to really expand. We need to leverage on their marketing effort because first, they do a lot of marketing and they are the expert. They will do a lot of SEO related. They can help you really go and roll out to the rest of the countries or even outside of the countries itself. So that's something that I would say that, all the business out there, I totally really encourage you to really embark on all such platform. We do have such a few platform provider in this fire chat today, which is we can share with you more later on.
Sure. Thanks, EK. Satoru-san, what's your view about the approach businesses should take to really tackle digitalization?
Thank you, Joe-san. I think it is important for top management to show a strong interest and commitment to digitalization, while at the same time making steady but continuous progress with small, easy to achieve goals and initiatives. Maybe I think Walmart is very good case for this matter. Yeah. Back to you.
Great. Okay, so that's great. But we've made a lot of progress on e-commerce in the last few months or few years. Certainly, there's been strong evidence that things are moving. And I would like to go in a bit more detail now on this. So I really want to explore with Satoru-san and Fabian, what are the trends in ASEAN versus Japan on the e-commerce development? Because here we're talking about some major steps we've done going forward. So Satoru-san, if you could share with us a couple of trends that you are seeing and that we are seeing and we need to build on and make people aware of it. And I believe you have a slide on this question as well, right?
Yeah, I brought the Japanese government's data here. And could you thank you very much. As you can see on the top of the slide, the global EC market is now expanding by 30% every year. And the SME is a leading player in this market. The Japanese market, the third largest of the world, continues to expand in the same way. But the growth of domestic EC, that is left side, has slowed in recent years. While the right side, cross-border EC field, has greatly increased its presence. So next slide, please. Japan's experience with cross-border EC with the US and China has told us that in conducting cross-border EC, it is important to utilize local EC platforms rather than working hard to build websites for individual stores. This slide will introduce a topic directly related to this seminar. Japan's cross-border EC has been successful in China and the US and has progressed to the billion-dollar scale, but competition has become fierce in recent years, and moves have begun to target Taiwan and ASEAN as the next market as right side. And the knowledge of how to capture these ASEAN markets is required. This seminar is designed to answer this question, I think. Yeah, back to you.
Thanks, Satoru-san. The challenges you talked about, the barriers, what sort of tough challenges are you seeing more specifically? Is it technology driven? Is it the mindset driven? Is it consumer? I know I haven't asked you this question before, but I just wanted for the audience to understand what are the barriers and tough challenges that you are seeing.
Yeah, maybe the Japanese there's a China's business and the US business is a little bit familiar because US was in Japan in the war period, and we talked with them in English, so very familiar. And also China is sending so many people to Japan, and the cultural exchange was there, and also there's so many businesses. But in ASEAN countries, we did so many infrastructure projects, but not making EC or the live commerce or any other live business, not so much experience there. So how to do business, the knowledge is lacked in these areas.
Yeah. Thanks, Satoru-san. Fabian, you are obviously got a much bigger picture of the region. And again, we would like you to share with us what are the trends in ASEAN versus Japan on e-commerce developments, and what advice and insights that you could share with us going forward. And I believe also you have a slide on this.
Yes, thanks very much for the question, Joe. And I would say my sharing would be largely in line with the trends that were pointed out by Satoru-san, in the sense that the e-commerce GMV, the gross market value, is growing year on year at a very quick pace. And as I was just reflecting over the slide, I know it says e-commerce experiencing hyper growth despite COVID-19. I think despite is probably not the best word. It's actually turbocharged by COVID. It's actually the word. I think a lot of us, we had similar experiences. I think with our fair share of working from home, eating at home, and then, buying at home. And that has been a common experience. And in ASEAN, I think COVID was really a black swan event that propelled and turbocharged the e-commerce market. You can see the numbers. The numbers speak for themselves. In Singapore market, in 2020, e-commerce GMV, while year-on-year growth was at 87%. And in Indonesia, which actually accounts for 48% of e-commerce sales in ASEAN, I think many of you all might have heard of the unicorn names, the likes of Tokopedia, Shopee Indonesia, Lazada Indonesia, and even Bukalapak. They are all really fighting for a big slice of the e-commerce market, and that market has grown at 54% year on year in 2020. And the key markets, I would say, would be really Indonesia, Thailand, Vietnam. These are key markets which I would like to highlight for our Japanese colleagues and partners. And I think what Satoru-san mentioned really is something that is worth reflecting and pondering about, in the sense that Japan, as an economic power, has been very heavily involved in ASEAN's growth, but largely on infrastructure, largely in manufacturing, in outsourcing. But I do see a huge potential for further partnerships between ASEAN e-commerce players with Japan, especially in the area of cross-border e-commerce. If I move on to the next slide. I just wanted to also share a little bit more granularity when I say e-commerce is booming. In what categories? Because that's very important for our Japanese merchants, our Japanese brand owners. So we see a lot of growth in overall 3 categories: fashion, electronics and media, as well as food and personal care. And I think these are sectors where Japan has an edge because Japanese products are fashionable and they're heavily trusted as well by the global community. If you look at some of the Japanese food stuff, so I'm from Singapore, and in Singapore, over the last 5 years, we've seen a sprouting out of Don Don Donki. Yeah, Don Don Donki in Japan is known as Don Quixote. But actually in Singapore and many parts of Southeast Asia, they go by the name Don Don Donki. And they have been this huge marketplace of Japanese products, largely food, personal care, and also other categories. But think of a online version of Don Don Donki. Yeah. And I think the sky is really the limit in this case.
Okay. So Fabian, while you're on the spot here, can I ask you again? So obviously you are confirming e-commerce has been an accelerator for digitalization. I mean, it's grown exponentially in all directions. But how can the innovations that we have seen in ASEAN, particularly in the countries that you've just described, also benefit Japan consumers? Because here there is something to learn, something to apply. And in fact, when you look at Indonesia with the biggest growth, one wonder why Indonesia, not somewhere else. So maybe you can help us understand this acceleration into digitalization.
Sure. I think one of the crux here is really the growing middle class, the growing digital savvy middle class. And there's a lot of leapfrogging. Some of them may not even have a bank account, a physical bank account, but they have started using GrabPay. They have started using the e-commerce websites, using even charging methods. They can charge their accounts through top-ups. For example, in Jakarta, you can actually take a ride on Grab, and then if you have some spare cash, you can actually top it up in that account. And that actually can then fuel other purchases online. And I just wanted to also take the opportunity to go a little bit in depth into the value chain that we're talking about here. And because I represent Enterprise Singapore, pardon the partiality towards Singapore companies, so I do put quite a few Singapore logos there, but really more as a reference. So in the e-commerce enablement service area, you look at digital marketing, you look at creation of web store, you even look at the data analytics and consumer loyalty tools. So you have the big names like Shopee, for example, Shopback, and then you also have some of our locally grown companies, Keepital, for example, which I think you will be hearing a lot more later. And then if you look at the supply chain side of things, we look at the last mile delivery, which is very important, especially when we talk about omni-channel. Omni-channel warehousing, inventory management, order fulfillment. So we put some names there. And the last part, you still need to collect the money. And that one, e-payments, that's where that we go into topics like FX hedging. We talk about online, offline payment gateways. If I may share one example of our Singapore company, MDAQ. So they've worked very closely with Alibaba, Taobao, in facilitating cross-border e-commerce by keeping the currency rates hedged and also being able to provide clarity and transparency of currency, the Chinese renminbi, for example. That actually gave the consumer a lot more clarity and confidence in buying products, improving the customer journey online and leading to more sales, increased GMV for Taobao. So that's an example of how payments is actually very critical in the whole e-commerce value chain.
Yeah. Thank you, Fabian, for that. That's really very interesting because Patrick, your name is on there, Keepital is on there, as is Get and other suppliers. But what Fabian just outlined, Patrick, is the importance of the enabling partners for an e-commerce strategy. Now, you are a key player in enabling services. What is your view in terms of the innovation that we can bring not only to ASEAN, but also to Japan and beyond in this arena of enabling partners?
Okay. I feel that actually, in fact, for Keepital, right, over the past 8 years, we actually have established ourselves in Singapore, in Malaysia, and Thailand, whereby we have our offices. So we focus on this B2B market. So I believe some of you over here, especially some who are not in the consumer market, they may feel that my company, my industry may not be so easy to go onto e-commerce. So that's where Keepital as a B2B platform will actually come in the picture. So we actually help companies in Southeast Asia, mainly suppliers, to actually have this online platform whereby they cannot fulfill the requirements from e-commerce platform like Shopee, Lazada. Okay, so same thing, we still have to go digital and go e-commerce. And our current supplier actually do import a lot from Japan, carrying a lot of established Japanese brand. As Japanese is known for their technology and innovation, we also wish to help more Japan manufacturers to extend their reach to ASEAN region. So as Keong has mentioned earlier, right, digital marketing come in a lot of form. You know, you need to go into e-commerce, you need to go into SEO. Okay, we in Asian there's a lot of different language and different people using different way to actually find products. So all these are our strength. We help to build this platform whereby it makes it easy for you to onboard your products onto our platform. Okay, yeah. So we started off as a lead generation marketplace, but I believe lead generation is not enough at all because the global actually needs a end-to-end solution. Okay, like what Fabian has mentioned, there's a payment system, there's a logistics system. Okay, so for us as a lead generation marketplace, right, we actually work with partners. Okay, like CALISTA Freight Exchange, of course, with the help of Enterprise Singapore, because they actually supported us, and we actually can work with CALISTA to build this system, this ecosystem into our marketplace.
Thank you, Patrick. Yeah, that's great insight. So if I want to turn now back to CK and to Satoru-san, now we've seen how important it is to have an enabling strategy. The partners in the model are so critical. They are very crucial to start off. But having seen what has been developing in ASEAN, what will be the best practices and the model that could benefit Japanese businesses? We can start out as CK or Satoru-san, whichever prefer to start first.
Maybe Satoru-san, you can take the lead.
Yeah, Satoru-san, please give us the view of the best practices in the model that could benefit Japanese businesses, considering the enabling partnership that is necessary to make it a success story.
Yeah, in my opinion, by creating a situation where it is easy for Japanese companies to exhibit and deliver products to EC malls like Rakuten in Japan or Amazon in Japan, or the Keepital in ASEAN markets. Those kinds of the EC malls access in emerging markets will be better. And I feel that the Japanese industry will enter to a major growth phase if they use these kinds of the EC access.
Okay, thank you. Keong, what is your view?
I think totally I agree with what Satoru-san has said. And definitely, e-commerce is one of the key areas where we can really leveraging on. Like I said earlier on, there's a lot of platform out there. We really need all the businesses to really embark on all these platforms.
Right.
Patrick mentioned before that there's logistics platform, there's marketing platform, there's e-commerce platform. So we are looking at something like, if we can combine all together with the set mindset to say that, this is what we're going to approach and look at it. Doesn't mean that you sign up in Google or Amazon, you are ready. No, there's still works to be done. There's still that, in your product, how you actually advertise, how you roll it out, how do you make things happen. So the model is first, take an approach, go on to a platform and start to understand the platform. From understanding the platform, you will do more, because once you have a small baby step of successful to say that I sold something on a platform, the rest of the business is how you start to trigger and say, hey, I don't want just to be on one platform. I want to be on multiple platforms. That's what we're talking about. And we are here to help. Definitely, we are here to help. Right.
So the subject, thank you for that. The subject is about building supply chain resilience for turbulent times. That is what we're talking about. We've seen how important it is to have partnerships, enabling partners. We've seen the different sectors of the model. So let me now turn to the next question that is probably on everyone's mind. What are the solutions out there that can move the needle in Japan? What are the platforms that we could drive this forward? So if I could ask you, Satoru-san, to give us a view of what is it out there that we could help us to move the needle forward.
Yeah, thank you, Jo-san. Even if Japanese businesses realize that there is an opportunity in ASEAN cross-border e-commerce, they want the safety and the certainty that is the Japanese style. So they need a precedent and joint partners who can reduce the risk as much as possible in order to jump into the market. In particular, total coordination, including the logistic area that is already sent to the Q&A already. Those kinds of the logistic area involving physical movement and the customer declaration will be necessary.
Right, right. That's great. Thank you for that. So now, San, I know that you are very passionate about the solutions. You're very passionate about platform that you want to share with us. I think that we call it CALISTA. I think someone mentioned earlier on. So San, can you share with us some of these insights into the solutions out there and how we can help us move us forward?
Yeah, thank you so much. As with Satoru-san has mentioned earlier, I think there is a lot of interest that I see in the Japanese companies to do that cross-border e-commerce into ASEAN. Just that the complexity would be in the language and the market know-how and in finding the right partner. So I think I can share a little bit more on GET's offering as whereby we have the CALISTA platform. All right, not here the advertisers sharing that this is our service, which can be of consideration for all of you. Okay, yeah, so CALISTA, we designed this as the supply chain orchestration platform. All right, you can see this as a digitalization platform, but it's more than just technology alone because we combine the knowledge of logistics with regulatory compliance and even financing all under one platform. So you can see that with the logistics, we are connected to more than 90 ocean carriers and NVOCCs around the world. So this is where with one platform, one touch, we are able to connect to many more freight forwarders as opposed to maybe 1 or 2 or 2 to 3 that you usually go to. So with this platform, you're able to do things like freight booking, multi-modal service orchestration, track and trace, and also virtual freight forwarder, which Keepital is working very closely with us on. So this part is more on the logistics. And next is on the compliance, which is also quite the forte of our company because we leverage on Crimson Logic's 30 years of trade facilitation experience serving the Singapore government in Singapore. So this is where we have built up a library or a domain knowledge of the global trade protocols around the world, specifically things like the FTAs, the HS codes that you use whenever you file for trade from one country to another country. We also act as importer of record for you in Singapore as well as in Thailand, and we're working with a few more partners in ASEAN. We also have the CALISTA Intelligent Agent. In short, we call it CIA. So let's say if you are an e-commerce player, you're looking to export to another country, you have your goods all ready to go. But when it comes to trade declaration, you find yourself not knowing which are the right HS code to use in terms of language or the digits or simply the right classification to use. And you will spend a lot of time doing Google search or checking with expensive agents to find out what is the right HS code to use. Over here with the CIA, you can do a very simple search and we will give you the correct, the most accurate HS code for you to apply. So that's where we help you to save on your time and effort in doing your trade declaration. And last, we also have the financing piece where because of the first 2 pieces in logistics and compliance, we have all this important data and information already collected, and we turn that into a further value add for you such that we can reuse this information and we work with the financing institution. So when you require financing for your trade logistics or supply chain, you can make use of this information to apply for a loan or credit line with the bank or financial institutions fast at a very competitive rates. So this is where we have all 3 services under one roof. And you can really pick and choose depending on where you are coming from, because we understand that different players would have different needs. Yeah, so that's CALISTA platform in a nutshell. And it would be pretty useful when you export to different countries. Yeah, I'd also like to take this chance to share our US e-commerce import program. This program was lately launched last year, and we designed this for e-commerce exporters who are looking especially to go into the US. We saw with US because we noticed there's a large demand for the US market. especially from China to US. So the starting point was that we designed this from China into US, and now progressively we can open up to other markets going to US or other markets going from to and fro different countries. Yeah, so maybe I just go through this very quickly. This is a managed service whereby we take care of your export from your point of export. So we are able to take care of the label printing from the point of export. Let's say you're exporting from Japan to US. We are able to work with this consolidation part. And then when the goods move over into the US, we are there to help you do the custom filing with the US ABI customs. Then you might think, what's so special about this service? I can do it myself too. But we do have a team over there that's housed in LA and Canada. We work very closely with the US ABI customs team, and we are able to use the Section 321 Type 886 filing, which is a special de minimis rule endorsed by the US government, such that for e-commerce goods that is valued at $800 and below, you're able to enter duty-free. So this is a very special arrangement and service that we cater to e-commerce traders going to the US. Okay. And on top of the filing, we are able to do the warehousing as well as last mile delivery into the consignee's door. To top it off, we also offer end-to-end tracking from processing of orders to the shipment, clearance, and finally to the last mile delivery status. So
this is impressive, but tell us, what other benefits would you see from this in terms of cycle time, from cost, from visibility? Because obviously this seems to be a very integrated solution. But what are the benefits as a user I would see coming out of this?
Right. Okay. So specifically for the US e-commerce program, the benefits would be that you can save a lot of time dealing with different parties. If you were doing this on your own, I would foresee that you will be dealing with first a freight forwarder who is doing the international shipment for you from Japan to US, and then this freight forwarder will be looking for another agent to do the filing for you. Then after that filing, you'll be looking for another local warehouse player to do the container freight station for you, and then pass on to another last mile delivery. So over here, we stitch it all up for you. And secondly, if you do compare to established couriers out there, for example, DHL or FedEx, yes, they can do it for you, but I would say our option is relatively cheaper. It may take a few days longer, but overall it's a lot more affordable. So this serves as an alternative for you.
Okay. Yeah. I'll leave it there, Susan, because I know there's some questions from the audience. Now we'll come back to you in a little while to answer a few more questions from the audience.
Sure.
But let me move on to ask Chee, Keong, and Patrick now, because obviously a system like this can give us some headaches in terms of integration, in terms of linking it to our other systems in the organization. So is it necessary to define a technology roadmap, or is there some other approach where we can apply a platform like this or leverage the platforms out there, as you were saying earlier on? Chee, Keong, can you take that, please?
I really can take this. The thing here is this roadmap for technology is very important because it defines where and next step, how we're going to do it. Customers that come on board with to a platform, the platform has to define, where is their next step they're going and what kind of process they will have or their roadmap. You took Grab as a simple example. When Grab just started itself, their feature was not that really enhanced. It was somehow or rather, it's just solving a problem to say, hey, you don't get a taxi, I help you to get a taxi. The same thing goes to Uber also. But when they go on, they got more feedbacks, they start to enhance. The more enhancement that you have, the more customers will come on board and use it. Same thing here, when we do B2B business itself, all the B2B will tell you, say that today, can I just focus on my core business and I don't want to really bother about technology? So technology provider like us, or platform provider like us itself, has to really work on what is our roadmap and explain very clearly to our customers to say, these are the roadmaps that we will have, these are the next few things that will happen in the next quarter or the following quarter. And they have the confidence with us because we are going to help them in terms of really reach out to the customers.
Great. Thanks, Keong. So, Patrick, from when you're advising your customers on the services that you provide, how do you address the technology roadmap, or do you have a different approach in terms of helping the customers integrate your services into their systems?
Yeah, thank you, Joe, for your question. So we strongly believe in localization. Okay, suppliers in Singapore, in Malaysia, in Japan, our habits are different. For B2B, it's even way different. So we do understand their needs in their country, and no matter what, we are still solution provider. So what we are doing is according to their needs. And we need the local people over there. We need to hear customer feedback. We do according to what they require to solve their problem with technology. Yeah. Right. So we also need to find a suitable partner in terms of freight, instead of payment, to build this accordingly for the local customers. So even for Grab and Uber, you can see that in different countries they behave differently. Yeah. Right. Especially now for Shopee, you can see even their advertising, they get locals to actually do the advertising. Yeah. So I will focus on localization. That's the key.
Thank you, Patrick, for that. Clearly, we'll come back to that later on because I have another question to ask. But let's open the discussion up to the audience. Wayne, could you maybe pass a couple of questions for our panelists? Because I know you're following the questions coming from the audience.
Yes, we've received a few questions already. The first from JC Chua. When it comes to personal care, there are hurdles related to customs. What is the best practice to enable, if not unblock, these customs hurdles on cross-border e-commerce? The e-commerce last mile enablers enlisted in the slides have solution for these custom challenges?
Right. Who wants to take that question?
Maybe I can take that question itself.
Go ahead.
Number one, I mean, if you come to personal care products, when it comes to cross-border, the equation itself depends on the countries that you are going to. Different countries has different type of importing regulation. And that's where some of our products itself or some of our solution itself will fit in. Like I think earlier on, Susan has mentioned about our CIA. Our CIA here is not the American CIA. It's called CALISTA Intelligence Advisory. So it functions like the CIA. So it gives you advisory, give you really in-depth information about, the goods that you want to import or export out to a country that you have never been to. So they tell you all the requirements that you needed so that you can actually leverage on this. Although we mentioned before, we have more than 61 custom nodes around the world, but doesn't mean that, when your product shipped to us is how you get totally clean access to all the custom. It's not. We are only open up the digital portion, meaning that your data itself is being sent earlier to these custom brokers or the custom connection that we have. That allows you to have less human error, and you can address to make things easier. Let's say you have any changes or any amendments you have to make. All this digitalization itself will make things easier rather than in the olden days itself. You have to resubmit back the form and you make changes and you have to refill up the whole form again and get all the necessary signatures itself and then resubmit again. So that is
Keong, if I can ask you, how does this work as a user, as an exporter or importer? You actually have to do download the data beforehand, pre-plan all the customs requirements and everything else before the shipment is made? How does it work in practice?
Okay, if you are doing it on a digital model itself, I mean, we leverage on AI, we leverage on machine learning. You key in the particular names itself, we can give you all the information you need and you just click. So it's a simple step. It's not going to be like, you have to download every document and then read through and then fill it up. No. That is in the past. Yeah. Okay,
great. Thank you. Wayne, I can see some other questions. You want to take the next questions or ask next questions, please?
Sure thing. The next one for Patrick. Is there a minimum order size that is involved to maintain B2B instead of B2C?
Good question. For us, B2B doesn't really mean like in volume. Okay, B2B, business to business, actually also means that they may need customization. Okay, they can't just buy it off the shelf. So business to business, the requirement may be different. It's not something that caters to everybody's needs. So no, answer is no. There's no minimum volume. Yep.
Well, from a cost point of view, though, Patrick, I mean, obviously, if certain transactions don't reach a certain level, what's the cost, the payback in terms of setting up a system? I think that was probably the question being asked. If I have to pay for an investment in the B2B solution, but my transaction, the volumes aren't equivalent, then I don't get the maximum benefit. Is the break even between the number of transactions and investment?
Okay, I will say that B2B is more on going on a longer term. Okay, it's
Right.
not just a one-off buy kind of thing. You know, Shopee and Lazada, we buy one-off. We may not go back to the seller. We may not know who the seller is. So B2B is more on a relationship, and it's built over years. And we buy and sell from each other over years. Yeah. So that's the terminology and the key important part for B2B. Yep.
That's the difference. It's not one-off. It's a long-term relationship, a business flow. Excellent. Thank you. Wayne, back to you.
Yeah, one more from Tim Foot. Tim is asking, direct to consumer should mean that it goes directly from maker to consumer. Marketplace, though, seems to get all the traffic. How should brands free themselves from the marketplace?
Who wants to take this? A very tough question, this one.
It is a tough question. Yeah, maybe Patrick, you can start with it.
Patrick, yeah.
Yeah. So what I see in the past is that when Lazada first started, right, they actually target brands. Okay. In the past, what happened is that brand actually spend money on advertising without knowing the returns. So Lazada came out and said that, okay, now brands, you get this advertising platform and you pay only when you get the returns. That's true enough. When you sold the item, then you get you pay for the commission. So to be honest, it's not so easy nowadays because you know how strong they are in their marketing. To be honest, even a lot of brands in the beginning, they actually didn't want to go into platform. But after a while, they find that they have no choice. And all these platforms, they actually come with another separate marketplace to cater for brands. Example, for Tmall. Tmall is for brand. Last Mall and this Shopee Mall, especially for brands as well. So I think we have to go with the flow now. Yeah, we follow the market. We build on our own brands and also go onto all these platforms. Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Satoru-san, do you have any comments on that question? Would you like to offer some answer?
Yeah. But in Amazon or Rakuten, I'm purchasing goods every day or every week. But I'm seeing those kinds of the first brand search in the EC. So yeah, maybe brand is co-live with EC. So not that is captured by EC more or something. So maybe how to harmonize those kinds of existing technology is brand's next strategy, I think.
Okay, great. Keong, do you want to make a final comment to that question, or you still on the
I think I can make a comment on it itself.
Sure.
Mainly, most of the brand itself, their concern is if I go to the marketplace itself, I lose the customer's touch because mainly the customer go to the marketplace. So I don't have to reach out to the customers. So I don't know who's the customer base. And that's something that, you know, I have to rely on all the marketplace. But let's put it this way in a different mindset of thinking itself. Even let's say the marketplace have all your customers, but if we don't have a product or brand, you can't sell also. We can't reach out also. It has to work together hand in hand.
So it's a compromise, isn't it, Chee? There's a compromise between the two.
It's a compromise. So we have to agree to, in a way, is to say that today, if you are, even you look at it, big brand like Chanel or those really Hermes brand, they are going into this kind of digital marketing also. They are going into, they may not be looking into going to last mall or all these places, but they are also embarking on this to say that, hey, maybe I have smaller products that I can go in and target to the mass market. Because this is talking about mass market. You will have your own really direct customers that you have to take care, and those are huge. Those are big ones, which is they don't require any mass market kind of things that to work on. What you want is you segregate your business clearly. If your brand is targeting a mass market, I mean, put it this way, you put at a supermarket itself to sell, the customer is not
Right.
yours also, right?
Sure.
Because
sure.
it belongs to the supermarket.
Exactly.
Yep.
Interesting.
So,
Okay. Thank you all very much for the answers. Wayne, are there any other questions, or can we move on and maybe take it in the next round of Q&A?
At this moment, we've covered everything.
We covered everything. Great stuff. Thank you, audience, for your questions. Let's move now to the last section of our discussion, is how digital government solutions can power global trade. Now, this is a very important point because clearly, and I'm going to bring Fabian into this one here, more than he has before. And I want to ask Fabian, how important is it for digital government initiatives to precede private initiatives to facilitate global trade? Because clearly, living in Singapore and maybe in countries where the government digitalization is much faster, it's easier. But Fabian, what's your take on this very important point?
Thanks for the question, Joe. I think living in Singapore, Joe, you would be familiar with the Smart Nation Plan and also with the IMDA, the Infocomms Media Development Authority. That's
Right.
the agency that is responsible for digitalization of the different sectors in Singapore, which includes trade. And I just wanted to briefly mention that they have actually the Trade Trust. Yeah, and Trade Trust, essentially, it is a set of globally accepted standards and frameworks that support the exchange of electronic trade documents. And this is achieved through blockchain, public blockchain technology, offering the interoperability for the connection between governments and businesses. And what is the benefit then? Well, it can actually help to reduce inefficiencies and also complexities of cross-border trade arising from the current paper-based documentation, such as the bill of lading. And this lowers the operating costs for businesses and also the risk of fraud, while accelerating the digitalization of cross-border trade processes.
Right.
And for Singapore, as a country where trade is about 3-4 times our GDP, it is very important for us to be really at the forefront of digitalizing trade. And I do firmly believe that government does play a very important role in cementing this digital infrastructure that can then serve as a foundation for our private sector to really thrive. And it's really where I would like to quote Professor Lim Chong Ya. He mentioned that Singapore is really where the invisible hand of the market actually operates and dovetails well with the visible hand of the government. And I think digital trade is actually a good epitome of this.
Okay. So, San, can I ask you for your opinion on this point? Because obviously you are dealing the sharp end of the market. You can see what's going on. I mean, how are these initiatives helping you move forward in this arena?
Yeah, thank you for that. Myself, having come from Enterprise Singapore before I joined GETS, I think I sit on both sides and I can see this very well. Yeah, so for one, I think the Singapore government's initiatives on all front in pushing for digitalization is very important because it sets the tone for all the companies to not just follow, but have the confidence to take the step towards adopting new digital initiatives.
Right.
And at the same time, I think there is a need to strike a very fine balance between the government support as well as private investment, because we also see, or rather don't want to go into the scenario where the public's support create a crowding out effect whereby it slows down the private investments progress. So far, I see for Singapore, we've been doing it quite well. I think we've been doing just nice because the way we support is that we require the private to have a skin in the game as well. So, for example, when Keepital worked with us and we also sought Enterprise Singapore support in that project, they actually require the company to co-share. So there is a public support and the company must have some form of investment to make sure that they really see through this investment and at the end of it reap the benefit. So I think this methodology or rather this framework is correct, would be good as a reference for others to follow.
So it's a partnership again between the private and public sector. So if I can ask Satoru-san about his view in Japan, because clearly Japan is always perceived as a very high-tech country, very innovative. How does the business in Japan create this way forward? I mean, how important is it for Japan public service to lead this initiative in digitalization and e-commerce?
Yes, in Japan, the technologies may be pretty good, but the government speed is not fast as Singapore government. So in Japan, the voice of frontline traders from private sectors are beginning to move the government right now. In the last 4 years, the Trade Consortium, a group of trade practitioners from all Japan, which created this TradeWaltz Inc., has not only triggered 2 amendments to the commercial code and the electronic bookkeeping law, but is currently requesting to the Cabinet Office and also the Prime Minister Suga-san, and now working with the Ministry of Justice to request the legal basis of EBL, very, very important part of the global trade. In Treasury, with aforementioned ICC, UNCEPAC, PAA, and also Trade Trust, this and other international organizations, we are working with the public and private sectors to achieve effective global trade interoperability at the practical level, not just legal level right now.
Right. Okay, thank you for that. So, Keong, coming back to your earlier comments about leveraging on the available platforms. So, in the lack of where we're living in countries that are fortunate to have digital leadership in government, private sector in countries where there isn't leadership of government need to rely on private good solutions. So, in your view, what are the fundamental digital solutions that would facilitate this move forward and benefit the consumer, but benefit businesses to grow even faster?
I mean, the key fundamental here is really the industrial support. Because if you look at it, early days of China, there's no such thing as government supporting of e-commerce or any transformation itself.
Right.
The rise of Alibaba, the rise of Tencent, right, WeChat, they don't have any government support at all. And you imagine, today they have payments, they have everything online. So that is this is driven by the industrial. It's not really by the government itself. But later on, the government realized that, it's a step that they have to go in and really leverage on it. So industrial support itself is definitely very, very important. So we need to make sure that, from where I am now as an industrial person, I should go in and share on what I can do, what is our platform can do, and then we move forward. And this will give small result or even better result to all the government to look at it, and they will use this as a benchmark and say, hey, it's time for me to put in some effort to make changes. Many countries have many efforts that put in, but it's how much. In Singapore itself, during this pandemic itself, we put in a lot, much more than what we were supposed to put in. And that helped us to turbocharge our growth. I would say that many other countries are doing the same. And with the other fundamental is, we're looking at error-free business. We're talking about paperless kind of business itself. The first initiator is how, beside industry, government has to support it also. To say, hey, now make it simple, make it easy. So we do that. And the good intangible benefit is many mistakes are made by human error. Imagine that, if we really go for digitalization itself, this cut down a lot of all such kind of human error that we're talking about. And thirdly is mindset. Really mindset.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And again, I think the point you're making is very clear. Whilst government can be an enabler to help business have to take their own responsibility to drive forward using innovation, using solutions. And again, if we want to come back to building supply chain resilience in our businesses in turbulent times, which are going to be foreseeable for the future, we must take initiative, and government can help enable. But we can't wait for government to make the first move before we take action forward. That's the bottom line that you are saying, right?
Exactly.
I fully agree. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so we have had a very good discussion. Wayne, we have opened the second round of questions from audience. Are there any questions that we want to field to our panelists?
This is a very specific question, so I'm not sure. Maybe Satoru might be able to answer, but I'm not myself able to comment. But due to decreased population and the global pandemic, the surplus of the Japanese rice is there. The price is jumping down. Is there a way to export to global market, or is there any market for Japanese rice to help Japanese farmer?
Yeah, the question is, the person, the one here is my friend. And he is now growing the rice in the area very close to Tokyo. And his rice is now very good quality, but a little bit having so much quantity. So he wants to sell this rice, Japanese rice, to Singapore or ASEAN market right now. So maybe this question is to check or ask the needs in Singapore or other ASEAN countries. So could it be possible to answer from other persons? Yeah.
Sure. Maybe I take this question itself. Right. I'm happy to hear this. So, I mean, I'm sorry to hear that, the decreased population in terms of in Japan. So I think this is something, a big problem for all the Japanese guys to work harder. But exporting the rice, that shouldn't be any issues. And we are here to help. I think this is good. We are working on a so-called rice export program also. It's part of our programs that we are working on, which is we are exporting rice not only into Singapore, right? It's also outside of Singapore because we don't grow our own rice itself in Singapore. So it's good that we have different supply. And during this pandemic time frame, supplies become really unforeseen because everyone else will have this. If you have that particular challenges and all this thing, I'm happy to address it. Talk to us. We will embark you on this export program within Singapore or other ASEAN country. My colleague here, Susan, definitely can have a good reach out. I mean, I will need Satoru-san to introduce your friend to us maybe after this seminar.
Excellent. Very good.
Yeah, I will.
Wayne, any other questions?
Not at this moment, Joe.
Okay. Well, we have to wrap up because we really have had a very good discussion, but time is running away with us.
Sure.
So can I just maybe go around each one of you and leave us with a takeaway, a one-liner that you want us to remember this discussion about. So our discussion was about building supply chain resilience, talking about e-commerce, talking about digitalization, talking about the tools, talking about platforms, talking about enabling partnerships. So a very comprehensive tour around this topic. Fabian, could I start with you? Give us your takeaway. What would you like to leave us as an impression of today's discussion?
I would like to leave the message that ASEAN is really a growing market. I talk a lot about Indonesia earlier, Vietnam, Thailand, and these are key markets where Japan can tap on via e-commerce. And Singapore and our plethora of companies, especially Crimson Logic, Gets, Keepital, can work really hand in hand with partners like TradeWaltz to enable this e-commerce opportunities to be tapped on in ASEAN.
Right. So basically saying, take advantage of the enabling partnerships that have already been created to leverage the opportunities in the region.
That's right.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Fabian. Satoru-san, could I ask you for your takeaway?
Yes. As Fabian-san said, that the EC market, e-commerce market for ASEAN will increase the chance for Japanese company to enlarge their business, but also they can make their trade business resilient to some COVID-19 or other accidental periods. Because if we can digitalize the data of trade, we can see the stocks or the logistic route towards Japan to ASEAN and also ASEAN to Japan. Then in like the COVID-19 situation, we can import directly from the ASEAN markets, the masks or the medicines or anything. So those kinds of advantages there. So there is no disadvantage to digitalize the trade. That is my takeaway today.
Thank you very much for that. Thank you. Patrick, could I ask you for your takeaway, please?
Okay. I feel that be it going to which country, okay, we as company need to prepare ourselves with the information of our product. I guess there are a lot of companies, they have their information not very ready and sometimes all over the places. So information like your pictures, your product information, freight details, okay, your coding and all this. We need to prepare ourselves ready so that anytime there's any market that we can go into, we are always ready. Okay, so that's my advice and my message to all companies. Yep.
So basically, know your business in more detail to be ready to leverage what's going on.
Yeah, digitize your content, have your content all ready. Yep.
Excellent, thank you. Next, I would like to ask Sosan and leave the final word to Chee Keong. So Sosan, go next.
Yeah, hi. I like to say that digitalization is a tool, is an enabler. But more importantly, is in the mindset. If you really want to do it, you will go out there and explore all the options that you have. Like I mentioned just now the market is very hot with a lot of solutions out there. We are one of them. We may not be the only, we are not the only one. Feel free to go and try. Only when you go and try and talk to these players, then you will know what are your needs and how each of these solutions can fit you like a jigsaw puzzle. So just go ahead and try. Thank you.
Very interesting. And then try and then come back to you for more, right? So they got the appetizer.
Yeah, that would be best.
Appetizer outside, but main course come back to you. Yeah. Okay.
Exactly.
Chee Keong, can I give you the final word?
Sure. I mean, all the good thing has been spoken by others, so leaving me only with a very minimum to say. But what I really take, the key takeaway here is for everyone is this. I really want to use this word to say that we bring you closer to the world. You know, just imagine early days itself, going business to do overseas business itself is so difficult. It is not easy. We have to travel, we have to plan and all those things. But with today, you know, sitting at home, we are bringing the world to you. So that is how you have to leverage on this digitalization itself, because that is where the trend is. We have, you know, shortened all the path, no matter be it in the digital way of the path itself, the decoration services or anything, even reaching out to people itself, video conferencing. I mean, we have multiple people here, right? From Japan, from other parts, Korea and everywhere. We are all on the same stage here, which is, this is a key takeaway. If we don't have all this digitalization, we won't have what we are doing now today.
Yeah. No excuses not to be successful, correct?
Yep. It's just a mindset. Again, going back to the mindset itself.
Yeah, mindset.
But it's great.
Chee Keong, Fabian, Patrick, Sosan, Satoru-san, thank you all very much for your participation. It's been a pleasure to have a discussion with you. I hope that we have given the audience some food to think about and some good ideas. Thank you to Wayne for being the moderator in the questions and to help me on the Japanese side. And I hope that this has been also an education and enlightenment to many people. It's been very interesting for me as well to see what's out there. And your takeaway messages are very valuable and really appreciated. I wish you all great success in what you're doing. We hope that we can meet face-to-face soon once the COVID epidemic is out of the way. But nevertheless, as everyone has said on the panel here, no time to waste. We must keep moving ahead and take advantage of what's going on in the marketplace. Thank you all very much. Wish you a good evening.
Thank you
Very much. Take care, everybody.
Thanks
Thank
all
you.
the audience also. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks very much,
everyone.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Stay healthy and well. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.